It looks like the present-day story of Assassin's Creed might soon be set in the future according to several rumors and leaks, including an unreleased and cut ending to Assassin's Creed Mirage that might have worked as a teaser for Assassin's Creed codename Hexe, and in this video we're going to discuss everything that has been shared in the last few weeks, including some details that you might have missed. In the video we're going to discuss and analyze the modern day ending and dialogue, its lore implications and what it might still imply for the future of the modern day, before moving on to an already existing Assassin's Creed story set in the future, the teaser to Assassin's Creed codename Hexe and Assassin's Creed Infinity, and some more leaks about when specifically the modern day is going to be set in its next installment. So no time to waste, let's dive into the recent news about the future of the modern day. So yes, as you might already know, there is a modern day ending for Assassin's Creed Mirage that was cut not so much before the game released, and it's a huge one, not only because it's a cut ending, nor because it's featuring some kind of antenna, but because it seemingly deals with a time skip, with its dialogues and events taking place way ahead in the future compared to the current modern day events. Of course, this didn't end up in the game, so none of this is part of the canon timeline at the moment, but because of the topics and matters at hand, it might still shed some light on what the future of the modern day might look like in the coming years. So let's start at the beginning and see if we can spot some additional details that you might have missed. A month or so ago, YouTuber SliderV2, who is very good at data mining and finding hidden files about and within the Assassin's Creed games, shared this video, labeling it as AC Mirage Secret Post-Credits Modern Day Cutscene, and it really was just about this camera panning over some dunes in the desert and ending up on a sort of antenna, with this scene supposedly taking place in the modern day, given the title of the video. The speculations already started at this point. What was the antenna meant to represent? Is this a modern day human made antenna or an ISO one, or is this an antenna found during Basim's time? Of course, all those questions had no answers, but since then SliderV2 has uploaded different versions of the same scene, some of which were actually playable, as in they could fly around with Enkidu and have a look at the antenna from different perspectives. But of course the most important versions of this cutscene are the ones to which SliderV2 added some hidden and cut audio files that they had found within the game as well, and that's where it really got interesting. Here, let's have a look at the most complete version shared by SliderV2.
Hey, you there?
I'm here.
I just filed my report, did you see? Precursor GM confirmed.
Are you serious?
Yeah, watch the playback. Scrub to the end.
Damn. 3 years of doing this, I've never even seen a memory ghost.
It's a rare find, don't beat yourself up. But this 9th century DNA, it's a gold mine. You said it was collected by William Miles?
I was just reading the data file. Is that what I said?
Double check, cause that's a name attached to a lot of interesting samples.
Miles. Why does that sound familiar?
Did you skip the history seminars?
Obviously not, it's mandatory.
Assassin Mandor. One of the last before the Great Shift. You don't remember?
The shift was 21st century. Ancient history. What?
Can you just pretend to do your job?
Lay off.
I'm serious.
Look, I'm getting a coffee. You want one?
Yeah, can't say no to that.
All right, meet you there.
So yeah, this is pretty huge, both if you consider it as the potential ending for Mirage and also as potential topics that might still be dealt with in the future. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this dialogue and see what we can get out of it. First of all, this looks like it's taking place in an undetermined future, decades or centuries after the current modern day events, and we are having two Animus operators talking to each other, one more attentive through their work than the other, and Animus being an Abstergo product, I suppose that means that Abstergo is still a thing in the future as well. The female operator has seemingly filed a report about some 9th century DNA, and considering this was supposed to be the ending to Assassin's Creed Mirage, I'd say it's pretty obvious that we are talking about Basim's DNA here, but that could also be confirmed by some other data mine dialogue. In fact, while commenting the news broken by SliderV2, YouTuber Jonathan also shared some additional lines of cut dialogue that might have taken place at the start of the game, replacing the introduction we currently have. Here they are are in their French version with our own translation to English.
Bon, où est-ce qu'il est?
Prélèvement 0003, obtenu par William Miles.
On lance l'étude, et on voit ce que ça donne.
So it seems that one of the original ideas for the start of the game, instead of having William having a general introduction to Basim and to potential general threats to fight ahead, was already to have some Animus operators, again possibly in the future, finding Basim's DNA sample that was collected by William in the Lost Archive DLC of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and especially to launch the analysis of those memories which would have led to the report mentioned in the cut ending of the game. So the DNA discussed in the cut ending was very likely to be Basim's, and it's pretty interesting because it seems that within the plans for this ending, this would have been the first time in decades or centuries that Abstergo, or at least these Animus operators, might have seen this specific sample or known about Basim, which is kind of surprising, as this would have also meant that the assassins were able to keep Basim's existence, and thus possibly also Eivor's existence, away from Abstergo's knowledge for a huge amount of time. In fact, these operators seem really surprised about something specific they have seen in these memories. They call it precursor GM, and it's very likely that GM here stands for genetic memory, not only because Basim's DNA would indeed contain some precursor genetic memories, as in genetic memories from the life of an Isu, in this case Loki's one, but also because it's pretty unusual to see genetic memory shortened as GM, but at the same time there is somebody specific that has done that in the past, you know, a narrative director that has helped with the intro of Assassin's Creed Mirage. And also, as we'll see, this cut modern day scene was also going to be a teaser for another game that he is narrative director on, you know. Anyway, throughout the Assassin's Creed lore, Abstergo has always tried to sequence the precursor genome in order to be able to read and play memories from the actual Isu times with no filter, no veil, no nothing, although with scars and scrambled results, and indeed oftentimes the actual unfiltered footage from the Isu era that we have seen in games has come from the memory seals that recorded it, or it was actually implanted in the Animus by somebody who owned them. So according to this cut ending, it seems that in the future, detecting and directly extracting the genetic memory of an Isu would have still been a big thing, with one of the operators saying they have worked on this field, I guess analyzing genetic memories and samples, for 3 years, and they have never seen or found any precursor genetic memory, and more specifically what they call a memory ghost, which could be anything really, but they do seem to reference that these can be seen at the end of the playback of these memories, so maybe they were supposed to reference the Isu holograms, considering that's what Basim sees at the end of the game. And yet, the most interesting part is still to come. It's said that Basim's DNA is a gold mine, and I'm not surprised about that, but also they say that the sample from which they saw Basim's memories was collected by William Miles, which means that eventually, after decades or more, the sample that William obtained by Basim himself at the end of the last chapter DLC of Assassin's Creed Valhalla was planned to end up in Abstergo's hands somehow. But most importantly, like I said, this cut ending reveals that these two operators were meant to be leaving decades or centuries after the modern day events we are used to. They are saying that William Miles is now mentioned in the mandatory history seminars at Abstergo, and especially that he was one of the last mentors or last assassins before an event called the Great Shift, which of course has been a talking point within the community once Lighterby 2 released their videos. The Great Shift is an event that supposedly took place in the 21st century, that is our time, which in this cut ending is defined as ancient history, which is why this got me to think that these two operators are living a few centuries after our time, although as we'll see later, eventually it might be much less than that. Still, considering they are saying that William Miles was one of the last mentors or last assassins before the Great Shift, I guess this event could signify something terrible for the modern day assassins, something that either caused them to change their organization and to lose the concept of mentors, or more likely, if William was one of the last assassins, the Great Shift could be an event that caused their extermination, something that had a similar effect to that of the Great Purge, which is another event in the Assassin's Creed lore war that took place in the year 2000, where thanks to sleeper agent Daniel Cross, the Templars were able to inflict a devastating blow to the assassins, killing most of them and forcing the remaining ones to separate into local cells and go into hiding, which is how we have always seen them in the games since the start of the franchise. Now this great shift could be something similar, where the Templars might have dealt a new huge blow to the assassins, but maybe a final one, a fatal one, considering we are talking of last mentors or last assassins, and that's why it might be called the Great Shift, a final shift in the war between the assassins and the Templars. But if this was actually the plan, what was this cut ending scene going to be the teaser for, narrative speaking? A story in the future where the assassins are no more, or maybe are officially no more, but there are some last few remnants standing, or maybe some remnants of the ideology standing? How would a future where the Templars have basically won look like? Quite surprisingly, we can actually find a visual idea for that where we could least expect it, from a non-canonical Assassin's Creed comic that has released a few days ago, that is issue 1 of Assassin's Creed Visionaries. In fact, that issue contains a what-if story set in 2042, where Templars have designed a new Animus variant called Project Pythia, which isn't only able to analyze the past but also present several versions of possible futures, all of which point out to the Templars actually winning over the assassins by the end of the 21st century, even though within the story the last assassin will still be standing in 2119. From there, the story has this future assassin, Selena, making her way in a Templar-controlled and owned society until she is able to assassinate one of the Templar leaders and reveals to not be the last assassin, but the one that is going to be rebuilding the Brotherhood. Of course, there's more to this story, and if you're interested in it, our sources has prepared a review and a synopsis about it, whose link you can find in the description. That story, of course, is a non-canonical one though, but it does bear elements in common with what seems to be teased by the cut ending of Mirage, and might still be part of the modern day of the upcoming Assassin's Creed Infinity platform, considering the similarities that concern a society where the Templars have won and the assassins are done and dusted, with only a few of them left, or their creed left to be rediscovered by someone in the future. But back to the cut ending for Mirage, even with all of this out there, the data mine information by Slider-V2 did not stop there. In fact, he also showed that this dialogue within Mirage's game files was actually named as post-credits AC Neo Tease Dialogue 1, meaning that this cut post-credit scene was going to likely be a teaser for a game called Assassin's Creed Neo, which journalist Jason Schreier reported back in September 2022 to be an alternative name for Assassin's Creed codename Hexe. The upcoming game supposedly set during the 16th century German witch trials, and this is pretty interesting, seeing that this cut ending scene was meant to be a teaser for Hexe, a game that is supposed to come out in years, surely after Red, possibly even after the upcoming multiplayer game Assassin's Creed Invictus. That's quite something, especially because, as we mentioned in our latest video, after Mirage, the modern day story will not be contained within the games themselves, as it's always been the case since the start of the franchise, but it's going to be featured within Assassin's Creed Infinity, the hub or platform where all the mainline Assassin's Creed games are going to be hosted, starting with codename Red. As it was announced, the modern day story is now going to be concurrent but possibly asynchronous to the games, and is going to be delivered on the platform itself, so it's quite surprising that this cut ending was not going to hint at Infinity, at least not directly, but at Hexe or Neo specifically, unless Hexe is going to be about much more than only the German witch trials. So we're talking about a cut ending, a non-canonical comic, some loose ties to a game that is going to take years before releasing, but still, as it oftentimes happens with data mining and leaks, when something gets out, more is likely to follow, and it oftentimes involves the insider gaming website, and this time it was no different. Building off of Slider-V2's videos, Insider Gaming did confirm that they had also heard that Neo is another codename for Hexe, but more importantly, speaking to their sources, they did learn that the modern day story, quote unquote, will now be set almost certainly in the future, and especially that Assassin's Creed Red will have significant portions of its modern day story set in the last decade of the 21st century, that is 2090 to 2099. Moreover, they also reported that because of that, Abstergo Industries will be getting a whole new cast of characters for players to explore, which I guess the two operators from the cut ending were going to be part of. So if we base ourselves off of these news, we're talking about 70 to 80 years in the future, not centuries, though in that case I wouldn't really call William Miles and the 21st century ancient history anymore, which I guess maybe even shows how devs might have considered different future timeframes where they could set this new modern day story, and I'd imagine having the modern day set even further in the future, as the cut ending seems to suggest, was the plan almost until the final months before the release of Mirage, considering that the cut ending itself and its audio files can be found in multiple languages, meaning its dialogues were voiced by different local actors, and that oftentimes happens towards the final end of the development process of the various games. It even seems like you can load this cutscene in the game in different languages through a mod by Slider-V2, whose link you can find in the description, so it really seems like this was cut at the very last minute, and I guess we could even hypothesize one of the reasons the ending was cut was that the modern day in Infinity was decided to take place in the future, yes, but much earlier than what is implied in the cut ending as reported by Insider Gaming. So yeah, even more unofficial information about where and when the modern day of the franchise might go, and of course we should take all of that with a grain of salt, but usually the track record for all of the sources mentioned today is pretty much on point, so I guess we'll have to see how much truth there is to all of these news when Infinity finally releases, hopefully next year, where we are finally going to see the platform in action, the first instances of the modern day story, and of course where we are going to plunge in feudal Japan with Assassin's Creed codename Red, the next mainline game in the franchise for which so many leaks and rumors are already floating around, as we reported in our latest video. Thanks for watching, a huge thanks to all of our ATA insiders and initiates for supporting us day in and day out, and I'll see you all in our next video.